Hey, howdy-ho, Lions fans. Welcome to the Detroit Lions Podcast, episode 273. This is the official Detroit Lions podcast for Reddit. I am your dashing host, Chris, and with me is my good friend, and look who's back, my co-host, Case. Brother, how you doing?
I survived. No, I've been, you know what I've been doing? I've been watching the Last Dance. It's on Netflix now. And you know what I've kind of realized? I think Michael Jordan and I have a lot in common. I don't have, his drive or his talent or, his body or anything. But other than those things, I think we're a lot alike.
Yeah, I think I see it. I really believe I never mind. I can't even, right? I mean, I can't even. All right, so hey, we got a great show.
What are you trying to say?
I'm just trying to move on. We got a great show today. Ford Field is prepping up for the fans. We're going to tell you what to expect so far. They had a letter go out to the season ticket holders. We'll get up in on that. I got a little bit of inside info on college football from number 81 at Georgia Tech. About what's going on with the ACC, and that may be indicative of things going on other places. No bad news yet, but there's a lot of stuff going good. Also, there's a lot of bad Lions in our history, and we'll talk about that. As a matter of fact, we'll take your calls on that as well. So be in there, be ready for that. We'll get to that. Warren Sharp Football, interesting Lions preview, a real interesting piece. And this is the kind of data that I would expect our team to react to. So we'll talk about that, a whole lot more. We've got a great show lined up. Case, are you ready to go, my man?
Just trying to be like Mike.
Let's kick this off and break it down.
All right, a couple of quick announcements first. Check us out, help us out on the Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. We got to give a special thanks to Dylan from
Guam.
Of course.
I think that sounded like a Jeff version.
That's a good one. There was a little talk about how to maybe put
I saw that, yeah.
Of course, very first donor, Mathis, Brian B, I Prevail, iprevailband.com. You can join all them and us at patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Hit us up you'll get access to the Slack, which is the most intelligent Lions chat. And now we've got barbecue, we've got beer, we've got all kinds of other channels as well, but it's the most intelligent Lions chat you will find on the internet. we might even touch on a little that later about a different place. Give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/the Detroit Lions Podcast, and check us out on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast. DET Lions Podcast, the very best place to see Case
in no pants.
In no pants.
It's supposed to be way I messed it up, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay. Let me see. I'm looking. We got a little bit of something here going on. All right. Well, we'll keep trying at it. Let us know about that audio. We're watching in the chat right now. All right. Subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast, youtube.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Rate us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you find us, we're there. And let us know. Let's see. Oh, yeah, give us a review. Give us those 5-star reviews. Sorry, I'm trying to fix a technical issue in the background. Please bear with while we work through this. All right, yep, give us a review, 5-star review. We appreciate those. And if you have some criticism or like us to do some work on the podcast, hit us up in the subreddit. We always read those things and we'll interact and see what it is that you think would make it better. It is a community show, and as part of the community, it is your job to help us become a better show. Give us a call via Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast. Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word. Or call us in the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS. It's 929-335-4667. Leave a message and get a chance to hear yourself on the show.
Tighten your chin straps, kids. It's time to review This Week in Reddit.
All right, it's time to talk about all the fun and exciting things going down this week in Reddit. And okay, Case, let's talk about it. I think the first thing I want to talk about is college football. Okay, because that's the first football of the year always, and especially now without the preseason. You know, it's this time of year, right, when training camp usually about starts. You're at your wits' end, starving, dying for football. Okay, and then training camp starts and you get a little flavor, and then you get the Hall of Fame game, you got Hard Knocks, and college football starts. It's the whole ramp up, right? And right now it just feels like nobody knows. It feels like nothing, and there's this big chunk of the heart that's been ripped out and missing. I have an insider, like I said, number 81 at Georgia Tech. I love that's his number, even though Calvin was 21. Also known as the North Avenue Trade School, just so you know. They're waiting for the word from the ACC director. The ACC conference director is supposed to give them the word on what's supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen this week. As of yesterday, no word. No word at all. And we don't know why, what, where, what happened. Having a little bit of technical glitch. Sorry about that. So we're still waiting on that. But what they have done is they have started working out. A couple weeks ago, they were doing weights only workout, but Tuesday of this week they began small teams practice. So they are on their way to work. So there's a little bit of hope, I think, in there. But I think college football here may be one of the things that helps lead the way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of example, a lot of precedent that needs to be set in order to figure other things going forward. Although I will say, it sounds today like the NFL and the NFLPA is very close to finally figuring out what their plan is. Whether or not that plan will hit major hitches, as we get closer to the season, that's almost impossible to tell right now.
Got it. Yep. So there's a lot to work through on this, and we're a little bit worried, a little bit nervous about having. So I made a bet with somebody that we would have a season this year. It was only a beer, and he's in LA, and so we figured in 2023 one of us is going to be able to collect when we can finally travel. But the idea is, will we or will we not have a season here? So we shall find out how that goes very shortly. So, okay.
I'd bet on having one, but only by a hair.
That's where I went. I went that we would have a season here. And, all right, one more technical thing to fix here, folks. Sorry. It's crazy. I don't know what in the world is going on. Okay.
Yeah, there you are.
It's nice, that the folks in the chat tell me something's wrong, Case, and you sit there laughing at me. That's how it works.
What's
right?
new?
Yeah. Okay, so that's where we're at. I bet on having a season because there's just way too much money involved. They're going to do it. I'm just telling you, they're going to do it in some way, shape, or form. I don't care if they just have a straight couple of division games, and the division winners kind of have a round robin playoff kind of a thing, something like that. There will be some form of a season this year. So there you go. With the idea of the season, though, right? I mean, what's the logistics? There's the seating piece. Where will people sit in the stadiums, right? And there was a note that came out from the Lions to season ticket holders today. And I want to talk about this really quick. Lions say, as we continue to prepare to host fans at Ford Field for Lions games this fall, we want to provide an important update. We're working diligently with the NFL, the city of Detroit, and the state of Michigan to ensure we have appropriate measures in place to protect the health of our players, coaches, and fans. Many of these measures will change the game day experience you've come to expect at Ford Field, which has been greatly improved. I might editorialize there. The most prominent change will be the number of fans allowed to attend games at Ford Field. Though capacity restrictions have not yet been determined by the government officials, we're anticipating reduced seating capacity with socially distanced seating. The capacity reduction will impact season ticket memberships, as we will be unable to offer members the customary and previously assigned seat locations. Once Michigan state government regulations are established and the NFL finalizes specific game day protocols, we will provide further updates regarding seating options for the 2020 season. Our season ticket members are the lifeblood of the Detroit Lions football, and we sincerely appreciate your patience as we continue preparing for the upcoming season, and we'll work to provide further updates as they become available. This is a 180-degree turn from at the end of last season when they sent notes to season ticket holders saying, hey, you know, maybe we'll take your tickets away if you're not going to show up and you sell your tickets. I mean, this is a complete 180. Crazy. Absolutely crazy to me.
Well, I think that it was an easy way to, kind of sweep the backlash that they got after that under the rug, not have to really think about it in any real way. So
yeah, I think this is I think if nothing would have changed had COVID not happened, but now they recognize that a diminished experience means less people were going to want to pay and be there. They know they can get more out of season tickets than they can out of Joe Sixpack that's just buying a one game thing. And they're terrified, I think, about what revenues are going to be and how they can maximize them. And I think now they came back with their tail between the legs because they weren't feeling their oats quite so much. I think that's really the situation more than anything else. So, all right, I got to make a quick drink. I didn't have a chance. All right, so we got that going on. As far as what else on the game day experience, what else do you expect might happen, Case? What other changes can you foresee?
Well, God, I mean, if you think about it and you think about, 6 feet, figuring out what they're going to allow in the stadiums it's really tough to predict. And I mean, I've been to a couple of restaurants. North Dakota's not on lockdown. And, we still have a relatively low, although percentage wise, we're near the top of new cases every day. But that's largely because we didn't take the precautions that other people did because we didn't think we had to because we're so isolated out here. But anyway, sorry, that's way off the point. It's hard to picture how many people you can get into a stadium and how much distance you're going to be able to put between people. And it's going to look really weird when you look out at the crowd and there's like a few hundred people out there as opposed to,
did you see the
tens of
cardboard
thousands.
Did you see the cardboard people for the Dodgers game?
Yeah, I think that's dumb.
I didn't see it. I heard about it a couple times today, but I haven't had a chance to look because I've been working all day.
It's cute and maybe it's something you can do once, but I don't think that's a
permanent solution.
I think, yeah, no. And I watched a Major League Soccer match, and the cameras never panned up. Like you never saw the stadium seating at all. It was just like the cameras all just sat right above the field of play, and that was a weird thing to not see the camera angles change and not to see panning around the stadium.
I think you can do that a lot easier at a football game. When you're doing the side-to-side view, the down the line of scrimmage view. Because when we were at the Tampa game, I tried so many times. We were like the second row, and I never really got a good shot of myself. I was a blur at one point when the camera lifted a little bit. I think they're going to be fine in keeping the video or the view of the spectators out of it. I think the crowd noise is going to be a big thing that's going to be odd. But I've really picked up on UFC. I've enjoyed it a great deal since they've come back. And actually with baseball coming back, my favorite line is, I really can't wait to start not watching baseball again. But the UFC has been absolutely great. The thing that's real interesting about it, though, is to hear some of those hits and those kicks without the crowd drowning out the sound.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's like, whoa, that's crazy. I mean, it's a whole new element. So for me, in a weird way, it's made UFC really, really interesting and exciting. And again, I wasn't a huge fan before. I'd casually watch if it was on or whatever, but I've been like every weekend on it now. Just, it's been great.
Sure.
It's been a lot of fun. So I got something. What about the officials? We've got players that aren't playing. We talked, they'd probably be more injury prone. They probably might not be in shape. But what about the officiating, right? The whole training camp where they do the seminars, the players, the points of emphasis, that whole thing.
Well, do we have our special guest today?
Do you want to call him?
All I'm going to say is he's talked about how, preseason games are that's preseason for the refs too.
Yeah, let's call him.
So.
Let's call him. I didn't tell him I was going to call him. I thought we should. Right? Let's just do it. Welcome.
Surprising.
He's
all right.
He's a cool guy. He'll deal. He's okay. All right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's hard to picture it not being a little bit sloppy,
Yeah.
And there are probably going to be some games decided by things that
Dean. It's Chris, man. How you doing? We're on the air. Nothing happened. We're all good. We're on the show though, so don't call me all the things you usually call me. We got to keep our our appearances up. So there was rumors. We were talking about it. We were talking about some of the changes to the league, and there's rumors that you had a show where you were disparaging the refs and saying that they were going to be terrible this year. And we just wanted to clarify and get a quote before things got out of hand, and some of the guys like that used to think of you as like someone to look up to started thinking differently. Yeah, that's what we heard.
I mean, the only time I would do that is if, the typical when they screw the Lions over, then I would disparage them.
Of course.
Man, I can't imagine. I don't remember disparaging the refs. That's my people.
Well, that's what I thought. But there's all this talk about how you said they're going to be terrible with no preseason or something. Was that what you said? I didn't get to listen to your Dean. What is it? Good Calls with Dean Blandino, the podcast, the number 5 on iTunes right now.
Yes. I think I just said that it's more of a challenge without the preseason. I mean, the officials use the preseason just as much as the players to get prepared and get ready. And you always use the preseason as from a supervisory role to letting the officials know kind of where, what you want called, what you don't want called, and because the games don't count in the standings, you can, you're not negatively impacting teams by throwing flags. So without a preseason, it's just going to be that much harder. But we're all in the same boat right now with players, coaches, officials. Without a preseason, it's just going to be regular season week 1 will look a little different.
A little different. It won't be the refs' fault, except in the Lions game, right? So, no, we have great faith in the officiating. Although, I bet by week 3 we're back with the hashtag hire Blandino again, right?
Well, I think everybody's concerned about, for good reason, obviously COVID and everything else. But I think Lions fans will certainly, hopefully, we get a season and Lions fans will settle into that comfort zone of, by week 3, the world is against us, and we, we're not getting any calls.
Why do we?
Unlike Washington, we're not paying off the refs.
Well, if they were paying off the refs, they need to get their money back. Because
Right.
It was not a very good return on that investment.
No.
All right. Anything? Are they still going to do the world tour ahead of time, talking about points of emphasis and everything during training camp? Is that still in the idea, or is it virtually, or how do they?
I think virtually. I don't think you're going to have additional people at training camp, so I don't know if officials are going to be able to get, participate like they have in years past. I think there will be certainly virtual sessions. The officials have been having virtual clinics and sessions, Zoom calls, things like that. And I think, training camp, I don't know if officials are going to be there. It might be a virtual thing or maybe a combination.
Awesome. Are you still going to be on Fox with us?
Yeah.
And we know every time you wear a blue tie, it's giving a shout out to the Lions, right? It's like a little undercover nod.
That's always, whenever I always ask the wardrobe people to give me a blue a combination of blue, something blue, so I can represent.
There you go. All right,
Perfect.
buddy. All right. Well, I appreciate it. I'm interested to see. Everything's going to be one of those kind of those dry runs on the fly, and I think the officials are probably the one constant we'll be able to probably rely on the most. But like you said, there's still there's still going to be a little rust in there, and it's going to be interesting to see how they make that work.
Oh, no question. But they'll make it work. And I think coaches and players, everybody, what we've learned is they adjust. And so if there's one preseason game or 4 or 0, I think we'll see everyone adjust.
All right. Thanks, Dean. Have a good one. All right, buddy.
All right, guys. Take care.
All right. We'll see you. All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Should we call anyone else?
Did you really just call him up?
Yeah.
No warning.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's where we are now.
Who else we got? Should we call Brand Center? I got Burleson too. Should we call Burleson?
Yeah, let's do that.
I got a couple of people. We'll give Fonz another call. Anyway, okay. The Rolodex is getting more and more, so we'll see how things go. All right, so there he is. There
makes a lot booty thick.
That's right. Oh my God, where is that? I've changed this whole thing around. Oh, there he is.
Oh my God, it is Sir Mix-a-Lot booty thick.
There we go. Okay, got to get all this thing back in the swing of thing. We changed things around. That's why we're having a little bit of technical issues. We got to bring this all back together. But that's why we do it in the preseason, right, Case?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. All right.
We get a preseason.
Let's move on with the state of the NFL being a wreck and all these different people being a wreck. Now we have the generalized consensus that Bob Quinn is the worst GM in the NFL. I think everybody holds that opinion. And if we had our way today, he would be on the street and we would be without a GM before even week 1 of the preseason would have hit. Is that the consensus case?
It seems to be.
Are you
People didn't like it when I suggested otherwise.
Well, what do you know? Case?
Well, I don't know a lot, but I know a few things. I know that, barring Stafford's injury, that he'd be about a 500, record as a GM, which I'm not trying to defend a 500 record as, something phenomenal, but it's not worse in the league. I know that he has had average success drafting players. So all it comes down to for a lot of people is the records the last 2 years, right, and hating Patricia. And again, that it seems like a lot of people are just super willing to ignore that. I mean, they'd have been a 500 team last year, one way or the other, if Stafford hadn't missed half the year. And I'm not trying to defend a 500 record. Like, that's not something to aspire to.
Oh, I think that's.
But it isn't worst in the league either.
Is that what you're accused of? And I have to get the subreddit up because I'm sure there were some choice words that I could use to scratch some scabs for you.
Well, no, I mean, anytime anyone part of the issue, and I have a side tangent about the state of, I think, the Detroit Lions subreddit and the mindset there. But anytime at this point that you try to say anything even remotely positive about Bob Quinn or Patricia, you're just going to get annihilated. And I mean, not in a well thought out argument kind of way, but in a, people saying, you can't really believe that, or how do you justify this, or how do you justify that? And I'll go ahead and I'll justify those things to them. But that's not going to change anybody's opinion. The opinion for the vast majority is set. And it almost feels like these people don't want Bob and Matt to have success. And it feels like they'll be actively rooting against them this year, even if they're having a solid year. And that is an unfortunate place to be as a fan, I think. And I'm not, and we've gone back and forth on this. I know that you are maybe a little bit more loyal towards Patricia, towards Quinn, I should say, than I am. But like, I'm neutral on it. I'm not a slappy, and I'm not, he's the worst thing in the world. And one article saying, I think he actually in the article said he was the second worst out of the however many they actually ranked, because I don't think they ranked all of them, excluding guys who'd only been there, this is their first season, that kind of thing. And I just think if you look at the entire tenure of his career, he's most certainly not the second worst. The right things that right now aren't great, but he's average. I think he's an average GM. I don't think, and again, that's not something I want the team to aspire to, but I also think it blows it way out of proportion. And it reminds me of how every team, unless you have an elite unit, thinks that their OL is absolute garbage. Everybody's OL is garbage. Just because you think yours is terrible doesn't actually mean it's the worst. It's bad, maybe, but it's not the worst.
OL is one of the toughest position groups in the game right now, just because of the athleticism of the players you're facing, right? It's just that everything's kind of stacked against you.
Yeah.
And it's tough to be a good unit on offensive line, even with a bunch of good players. Like you said, unless you have an elite unit, everyone hates their offensive line or says it's close, but it's still garbage.
And to my point about our Detroit Lions changing over time, and I don't think it's not specific to that subreddit. I've seen it happen to other subreddits. It happened to RNFL a long time ago.
And you don't mean
it's
OUR. Just for those that aren't Redditors, it's /R/ name, right? Not OUR NFL or OUR Detroit Lions, right?
Right. As the population continues to explode, if a 60% majority feels this way about something and a 40% minority feels this way about it, the larger the population gets, the easier it is for that 60% majority to completely drown out the 40%. And so I still think the subreddit is a valuable place, especially as a news aggregate, and as a place to do various things and have conversations, but it gets more and more difficult to have a conversation with anybody willing to listen to you when it has just also become more and more and more of an echo chamber for that, slim majority.
It's the art of the shout down, right? Like all social media, the bigger it gets, the more certain loud voices kind of drown out others, and the more a gestalt is kind of created where you either go look, the meme thing that went through there for so long, we've kind of gotten away from that. I'm fine. It was fun while it lasted. It was fine. But it flooded out everything else, right? And there's certain kind of circle agreements that that people get into, and then it becomes kind of the standard kind of thinking for the group, right? And if you don't think you're an out-group person.
Right. And it's gotten, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's gotten more and more difficult. And I have said in the past many times, and I truly believe this to be true to an extent, although not as much as it used to be. People would always complain that, they got downvoted because they had their opinion went against the grain. And I think 99% of the time, those people complaining about that just didn't do a good job of arguing their point. And if you argued your point, and there were many times that I had gone against the grain and still got, people saying, well, I disagree, but I am this, I understand where you're coming from, that kind of thing. That seems to be getting harder and harder to do there.
Yeah, the upvote downvote system it's relatively a good system, but it's inherently flawed in its own ways as well.
Yeah.
And I tend really not to care about those. For a while I was like, oh yeah, it's but you start realizing it's just like it's the same thing as the video games build. It's that dopamine hit to keep you addicted. The more little likes you get on social media, the more you're addicted, and the more you get into it, and ding ding ding, dopamine. That's all that the whole system is about. Once you can disregard it and get to, there's a lot of great places on Reddit where you can have nuanced conversations about a lot of things and learn a lot of things. I mean, I've read it in that way has been great. The Detroit Lions subreddit, the nuance of conversation is gone, and it's now about, it's like a different long form Twitter where you can bring the snark, or you can bring down the hammer on somebody, or whatever else, rather than actually using that ability of the long form to have a more nuanced discussion. And that's what I really, really miss. I mean,
that's what drew me to it in the first place.
What was it, like 10,000 users when we started the podcast in the subreddit?
Something like that.
It was under 10,000. And the conversations were crazy. And there was,
I learned so much back then from people who knew a lot more than I did about football.
There's so many things I got wrong, you know, what I learned from, right? I mean,
and I had a lot of stupid, you know, back then I was very stats like oriented. And I felt that everything could be answered with statistics, and that if you tried to argue against a statistic by saying, you know, eye test or something like that, then you were just being ignorant. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that way anymore. And it's because of a lot of those conversations I had where people opened my eyes to the various nuances and things. And it's, you know, it goes into the whole thing, a conversation that I've had many times about PFF and where I think their shortfallings are and how they've gotten better over the years and that kind of thing too. But, I don't know. You know,
here's the thing about the statistics, right? And this, I want to clear up something from last week as well, because we always steer away from politics, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that intersects with football right now that can kind of bleed into that space. And we got off on a conversation about masks and the data and all that stuff last week. I want to just restate that the whole point there was data has been skewed by people with political ends on both sides of the spectrum. Right. What we wind up with is really, really bad data, and you can't make good decisions on bad data. That's all we're saying. There was no claim you shouldn't wear masks or everything was fake or anything like that. And some people took away, like they took off ramps at different points in the conversation. It's really, really hard because people tried, you know, all political people out there, you know, 90%, whatever the number is, that tried to manipulate the data to hurt the other team and make their team look good. And that's one of the biggest problems even in the subreddit, right? My team, I'm team this, your team that, and we're gonna argue this thing to the very, very end because you're in group or out group or whatever else. So I just want to clarify that. Well, but statistics can be used to tell two different stories of the same numbers, right? And that's the part where it's the interpretation of the statistics and then standing on your interpretation as being the only way that's possible to interpret that data, and that's incorrect. And then when you add a lot of things, you can say, look, the Lions record is the be-all, end-all on the quality of the coaching we had. It has nothing to do with Matthew Stafford being injured. It has nothing to do with the KC or the Green Bay officiating debacles. It has nothing to do with TJ Hawkinson being injured. It has nothing to do with half the roster being injured in a game last year. Nope. It's strictly the win-loss record, and that means we have a bad coach and a bad GM. Well, that would probably be a bad take. I am in a place with this team. I remember Billy Sims being drafted. I talked about that, right? When we interviewed him, he was one of my favorite of all time. I just love Billy Sims. He's a great guy. But I mean, I think back over all these years and the ups and downs of the teams and the one playoff win and all that kind of stuff. I've been patient with this team for a long time, and I don't think that having a tantrum and throwing out what we have after what they started with. Everyone wants to say we had a 9-7 team, right? When Quinn took over and so on, and we did. But we had no depth. When Quinn took over, we got stuck with a giant cap hit for Calvin Johnson. Now we're the third best cap in the league. That kind of speaks to some pretty good strategy. He started with no depth, a couple of stars, a mutilated cap, and it takes time to come back from that. It takes time to fix that kind of thing. And then a broken culture that has been broken since... I would say actually since Wayne Fontz's years. Not that he broke it. Well, that Wayne Fontz broke it, but it doesn't get, and it wasn't any different from then to Schwartz till Quinn and Patricia got here. And I'm going to tell you whether they stay or not. Right, if they have a year where they go 7 wins on a 16-game season or less, I see them go. I will think it's probably a mistake, but I will understand, and it's time to move on. That's the profession. That's the way it goes. But I'll tell you, they'll go be successful somewhere else, and we're gonna have that same old Lions. Yep, they fired him before they let him get good. We wouldn't, that's going to be the narrative from the same people. Right, that cycled about getting them out now. It's just it's this whole thing over time that you don't get. You get a lot of people that become very passionate fans, but with the Lions, you don't get a whole long game on that because you get frustrated and burnt out pretty quick, and you got the next generation of passionate fans roll in. So they don't have this kind of time base of kind of looking at this in perspective. There's a significant shift that's happening, and even if we say at the end of this year that those guys have to go and we're going to change, there was a real move to change the culture. Guys in the locker room that, hey, we're great players and fan favorites, but we're not good for the locker room. I think the change that they're making to this team is going to be beneficial even after they're gone. There you go. That's my
I think GMs. It's somewhat like the presidency, where a new regime comes in and when things, bad things that are happening, like in this instance, the cap space happen, or good things happen to that group right away. They get attributed to that GM when that stuff, early on, and it can take a long time to fix those things and turn those things around.
Look at Sean McVay, right? That first year, and then now, like the first year, if you ran into him in the kitchen once or bumped into him in a restaurant, you were getting hired as a coach somewhere, right? And now, not so much.
Yeah,
not so much.
Yeah. So
there you go.
No,
okay.
That's about all I have to say on those topics.
So this is the Bob Quinn thing, and again, I'm not saying Bob Quinn's the best GM in the NFL. I'm saying Bob Quinn got a tough shot in the beginning, and the history is yet to be written. Now, I will say, there's somebody who is. Okay, we're going to do this. We'll open up the call. We're going to keep going with the show, but we're going to have a quick conversation on this. The question to you is, who are your all-time least favorite Lions? Okay, and it comes out of the guy that one of the very worst, one of the draft picks I immediately reacted the worst to, in Eric Ebron, and it's only because he had a tweet showing how little Eric Ebron can math. He says, not having a season, the Lions will finally have a winning one. Now, I'm not sure how you get that math done, because that sounds like at best a 500, right? If you don't play any games. So, Eric, I'm not sure what's going on there, but he's back at...
0 times 0 is still 0.
Yeah. He's back at chirping at fans, because... he can't chirp on the field because he can't hold on the ball. The only thing he can't drop is his attitude. So anyway, he's out there. He's doing his thing, and I don't want to hang on him as a thing. But
I don't hate him as much as I just don't care about him, to be honest. But I know a lot of people have a lot of animosity towards him. So
yeah, and I understand. I get it. I knew he was going to be bad. I had hope. And I held out, but I just knew it from day one. It was a terrible, terrible pick. And so anyway, I mean, I'm going to say that's in the line of tease table territory. Mm-hmm. There was a conversation also in the subreddit last week that we didn't get to in the show. We want to talk about who are your all-time least favorite Lions, and I've got my three.
You go ahead, because I'm going to have to think about this for a minute.
Yep, I know. So just so you know, we literally do about 5 or 10 minutes of prep on these shows. We get some bullets together. This week, Case has been jammed. As you notice, he hasn't been on the show forever, so I've been trying. Hold up, no calls yet. So I just kind of put it together for us this week so we could get going. So this is all new stuff. Okay, so let's talk about this. My 3 least favorite Lions. Eric Ebron is just at the top of the list because he's just such a dolt. I mean, it's not even that he's just a bad player, that he's just so dumb about it. He's been hated everywhere he's left, right? Some people, Henny Youngman, one of my favorite one-liner comedians, his deal was, some people bring joy wherever they go, other people bring joy whenever they go. And Eric is the latter for sure. Whenever he leaves, it seems everybody gets happy. Eric Ebron. Andre Ware. I'm going to reach back in time. Andre Ware, I just can't stand it. He was a great quarterback, but he was a run and shoot quarterback. We picked him, I think it was 10th. No, he was 7th overall. Was supposed to be the quarterback savior, and it was right around when we stopped doing the run and shoot offense, and he never caught on. He just never was able to put it together. So Andre Ware was one of those total Lions. You've got this great quarterback. You look like you finally got the guy, and then he just falls to the floor. Just couldn't perform. So that one, and then the last one, and I was here for it. I was there. I did a Twitter thread about tickets from concerts and stuff I went to back in the 80s and stuff. And one of the things I showed was I had a ticket from the Lions draft at Ford Field when we drafted Roy Williams. So way back in the day, right? Mike Williams, though, a different Williams guy. We got him 10th overall, like Ebron. 37 catches for 75 attempts. Marijuana charge, and just a big lazy oaf. He was another one we thought he could have brought so much if he would have just tried. Like, it's the same kind of thing as Eric. I think it's not. I don't want to say he's not trying, right? I think they have the skill, but I think there's something else in the way that's there. So, all right, Case, those were my least favorites. What do you got for me?
I mean, it's still tough just because I can't think of very many that I truly didn't like. There were some who disappointed or whatever. Dominic Raiola might fit in that just because of some of the shit he did.
I like the challenging the band to a battle. That's
right. Then again, part of me still kind of likes that just because you got somebody with an edge on the team, that on the offensive line, sometimes I think you need that. And that we may have drafted another player like that. But I mean, he's still somewhat inexcusable on some things. Then Cliff Averill, but not, I mean, his exit from Detroit, I don't know why he felt the need to say so much when there was nothing was specifically done to him. Right. But he just felt and still feels the need to say as much shit as he can possibly say. And I don't appreciate it. I don't respect it. And then the last one's a coach. And that would be,
I was going to do coach just a second, but go ahead. Go ahead.
That would be Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah.
I don't know how that huckster talked himself into a job.
Yeah.
He was. I've never seen a worse offensive coordinator in my entire time watching the NFL.
That's the nicest way I've ever heard it put. How that huckster talked himself into a job. That's absolutely realistic. Hey, I think we've got our favorite man from the hit Netflix special Ozark on the phone. Brandon, is that you?
No.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, man. All right. It's Friday, baby. I'm ready to dance. Let's get this weekend cooking. It already is cooking.
Oh, man. Who's your least favorite Lions player?
I'll tell you, the least favorite pick of all time has got to be Mike Williams.
Yeah.
I mean, you had Millen on that was leading, like that was drafting. He's a defensive guy. And what did they need? They needed defense in the worst way. They had three of them. Three great players that lasted a long time or were terrific players. Sean Merriman, DeMarcus Ware, and the linebacker that played for Kansas City for like 15 years. And all after Mike Williams. And Mike Williams, what did he do? Catch a pass and a touchdown in like 3 years' time? What a bum. And after everything was said and done in the NFL Network life of Millen, turned out that he was talked into it by one of his offensive guys, and Mooch went ahead and he agreed with it, but then later on, well, I wasn't in on that decision. He's a bum also. And that's why he's sitting at a stupid desk trying to figure out why football's being played. What a dork.
So
it was bad.
So Brandon,
that was bad.
Could you add some inflection or something? You don't seem very passionate about this at all.
Well, I'm sitting here just pounding around on a typewriter if you want.
No, I'm with you. Mike Williams it was such a waste. He was such a waste of a talent. You know what I mean? He had all the gifts he needed, and he just pissed it away. And what was he, the third wide receiver in a row we took in the first round? Was that his position? Yeah. It was. I remember we were at Ford Field. So this is one of those things, right? I talk about when Ebron was picked, and my wife still is traumatized about the draft today, based on my reaction, because I just screamed a wounded animal scream when we picked Ebron in that draft. Ford Field was not happy when we picked Mike Williams. Right, you had all those folks. We were standing there, and it was like, and they were still trying to. They still do the camera, and they zoom in. They try to get a group of people so it looks like a real intense crowd at the field, right? And, all right, everyone cheer really loud. Okay, we're gonna announce it. Yay! Right, and then they kind of get to be. They had a hard time getting a group of people that was amped up about picking Mike Williams at all. It was really interesting to see. And those were tough years.
I thought at the time, well, yeah, he could probably add. That would be great on the offensive side, and we'll see. But after everything's said and done, Millen was all about defense, and he wanted a tough, hard-nosed defense with a really stout run game, and that didn't do anything for either one. Yeah. And instead, he wound up getting a coach. It was just nothing but finesse. And maybe in soft shell practices, which he absolutely hated.
Mm-hmm.
And before you know it, he got himself talked into a bunch of things that it's like his son said. He said the one time he let himself get talked into something when he shouldn't have, you know.
Yep.
And it's funny. I don't know if you guys ever were on message boards back then, back there in a million years.
Oh, yeah.
And that was back when the net was really getting kind of started. The Detroit Lions had a message board that fans could get on, and of course, all it turned into was just Rip City.
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible. And then the trolls on there was absolutely terrible. Well, one guy
Those are great days.
used to come on there and
Great
actually
days.
give some inside information that came true.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, he got out. It turned out to be Millen's son himself. You know, which was,
Jesus.
Those were the days when you tied
Just another layer of incompetence. That's really impressive.
Those are the days when you would tie a note to a squirrel's leg and they would take it in and they would read it and type it in for you. Those were fun times. Those were the heydays of the internet, right? When stuff was for real.
it was unbelievable. But I tell you the truth, though, it's just like Dan Miller says. The real thing that will cure all is winning, of course. I mean, you look back now, Chris. I know you weren't back as far as Greg Landry and that.
No, I'm not as old as you.
But that team was just getting it was the end of the terrific defensive players they had. They're all pretty much Hall of Famers, just like Green Bay. They just didn't have an offense. But that was toward the end of those guys' career, like Karras and like Lynn Barney was in his heyday, and Dick LeBeau and that bunch. And they really, I saw the game against Dallas that was 5-0. Man, it was just nothing but knockdown, drag out defense. Neither team could move the ball. And at one time, they pinned Dallas back into they did a goal line stand and got the ball back. The problem was the offense couldn't move the ball, and then Dallas got really great field position, and they got a field goal out of it. And then, wait a minute. They got the safety, and then they got the field goal because the Lions couldn't move the ball, and it wound up being 3rd and 10, and Landry goes back to pass in the end zone. Well, you know what happened.
Yeah.
Everybody knew they were rushing the passer, and that was the end of that. But the team, I mean, the city was psyched. I mean, you know, finally, the Lions are doing something great. This is awesome. And then mediocrity happened, and then Billy Sims come along, and then look out. Here comes another one bites the dust.
No,
Silver Rush.
that was good times.
Billy Sims just smashing people, man. It was awesome. And then a little bit of mediocrity, and then Barry Sanders comes along, and then everybody knows about Barry Sears. So we just need that kind of let's show that this team can do something, and it came close with Stafford and Calvin, but like you said, there was no depth. And then when we got in the playoffs, it showed up. I mean, there was always a unit that was a bunch of 3rd or 4th stringers trying to hold the phone, and you play a playoff team, and they are going to bullseye that unit and kill them, and that's what they pretty much did.
Yeah, even in 2011, our entire secondary was out. We'd lost our running back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Remember, there was one time somebody didn't even cover a wide receiver on the right side, and Reed just looked over oh, hi, boom.
Yeah, I'm not sure I personally have ever watched a worse secondary performance than both Week 17 of 2011 against the Packers and the playoff game against the Saints. It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. And I tell you what, even Dallas, against the Dallas game, we had a weakness in the nickel cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
That's when Bailey. Remember that's what not Bailey. Who is their slot guy? He's now playing for Buffalo. But he was just fortunate right and left.
Yes.
And then after that, of course, that's when Witten came alive, and that was the end right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you guys. It's this team. It has to almost seem like to take 2 steps back to really have a chance to have good, solid players. And all along he's been adding decent players, but he don't have that real top guy.
But
I kind of wonder if Haken and Okuda are going to be those guys on defense and offense.
And let's talk about this, because this is, I think, this has been part of my kind of thinking about what Bob's strategy is.
Beasley.
Yeah,
Cole
yeah,
Beasley.
Yeah.
That was going to bug me.
Yeah.
Yep. So my thoughts on Bob's strategy is that if you look at this team, we had Stafford and we had Calvin, we had Barry, and we had Robert Porcher. I don't know. We had a couple of guys that were stars, right? But never anybody else on the team. And what it looks like we've been doing is building out, weird enough, the mediocrity across the team and the depth across the team. And if you look at where we are on the cap, we're trying to draft some superstars. So like Hawk, like you said, may be that guy. I'd love to see what Swift does in the next couple of years. I'm really excited to see what comes out of those legs of his. But we've got money now to spend on those stars. And now when we have those stars, it won't be just squandered money. We'll have a team of players that can support them and actually do something with it. But I think it's, the stars keep people happy and excited and put butts in seats, but it's always that false hope, right? Because those guys can't do it themselves. They can't. You need a team. There's no Super Bowl team in the last 10 years that's won on the back of one or two people. Right.
I mean, if you think about the Legion of Boom, it wasn't just one or two guys. It was that entire defense that did it for them. And they had to have that. They had a good player at almost every single position, and they had good depth too.
Yep. And you think you take a team like an 8-8 team or a 9-7 team, you get to that point with that mediocre team, and you drop in look at the Broncos, and they dropped in Peyton Manning, right? Boom, superstar came, right. And that's what put him over the hump. I'm not saying we're going to drop in Peyton Manning here in the Lions and replace Matthew Stafford, because he is one of our superstars right now. But I think that's what this whole build has been about. And that's why I think I've seen us go through coaches quickly. I've seen us go through coaches slow. I just think that this culture change in this group needs the fairness of a shake to get the full chance, because frankly, we're not gonna win next year. I don't care who you put in the GM seat and the coach's seat. This team isn't gonna win next year or the year after if we switch this year. If we switch next year, they're not gonna win next year. It's just not gonna happen that way. And if they do, I'm telling you, it's gonna be a fluke, and it'll get figured out like McVay, and it'll be over. That's not what you want. Right?
I tell you what, the toughest team that the Lions have to face is the Vikings, because they're pretty well even all the way across. Although this year might be a little different, lost some key personnel. But Green Bay, to me, they are the team that won every close game at the end that the Lions lost. I mean, you look at it, man. They have the exact opposite record that the Lions had. And what was it, 2 games, even against Detroit? They lost, we lost in the last seconds of their offense because our defense couldn't hold them back. And you flip that around, their offense was able to pull out a game at the end of the game that their defense couldn't hold back.
Yep.
So, they just happen to have the ball at the last. And I really feel that after everything's said and done, Green Bay's coming back to mediocrity. Minnesota's going to take a step. They're pretty solid, and Chicago's going to be nowhere, man. I don't care what anybody says.
They got some troubles in paradise.
It's there for the taking. And you look at the cap situation we had with this. I'll say this, and I'll get out of here. They just okayed the idea of the future for the cap ramifications of the COVID problem they're going to have this year with the loss of revenue. So now GMs can figure out what to do for not just this year, but on down the road. Because otherwise, I tell you, man, there was going to be some quarterbacks that are going to be out of jobs because they're high price next year.
Yeah.
So now they can kind of recognize. I mean, you look at Philadelphia and a couple other, Cowboys. They were going to lose a lot of good personnel because of that problem. So
and think about it. Now, compared to where we were, they were all in a really, really bad spot compared to where we were. Right. I mean, if you think about if you have to take that kind of a cut that they were looking at, we were one of the best teams prepared for that. And I think that's a key piece. You start cutting out $30 million out of the cap, and we're in fine shape. We're playing with the team we got. Everybody else is cutting stars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get real competitive real fast.
Yeah, you look at what the price is that Stafford is playing for. I asked the guy on the radio the other day, national radio, Sirius. I said, don't you think that some of these high-priced quarterbacks are going to be a reset for the quarterback population of their contracts? Well, he didn't think it was going to be any big deal. But I tell you what, I think a lot of GMs did, and they were scared. You look at Wentz, you look at Carr, you look at Dak Prescott with that huge franchise tag. You look at even Cousins over there who's going to have to get his deal's about done, and it was all guaranteed. And then Rodgers even, and what Green Bay just did in drafting a quarterback, there'll be a major shift with all those guys going to different places, maybe for lesser money. But this saved them. But now Quinn is in we thought that he was in good shape this spring before COVID really hit. It's looking like he's in good shape for the next 2 or 3 years, money-wise. Now we need to get the guys to play and get it together. And, I don't know how things will work out as far as the season is concerned with the way things are, but it's got to be better than just 3 wins, especially as sharp as Stafford was last year. Dan Orlovsky put him in his top 9, and I bet he really got hammered over that.
All right.
Guys, I'll get out of here, man.
All right,
y'all
buddy.
Take care and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Brandon. Appreciate the call as always, brother. All right, there we go. That was Brandon. Gotta get him to fill in. Anything you want to argue about, Case?
No, I was just going to mention Kirk Cousins had a couple-year extension done. Also, I agree that the Packers will probably regress a little bit. I mean, that's normal for a team with that kind of point differential to go backwards a step. Here I go, relying too heavily on stats.
But just preaching, you don't.
Yeah, I also think the Vikings might take a tiny step back this year, but I also worry about them long term now after they had such a monster draft.
Such a well-coached team. They draft well. They're so strong across the board. They've lost a couple guys.
I could see them taking over the division for the foreseeable future.
I see them taking a half step back, and I see them still taking over the division. That's kind of where I think things are with the Vikings. They're going to be still, as much as we talked about them falling off a cap cliff, they're managing it as pretty decent, and they've got a couple in the tank here, and they've gotten some great talent for cheap out of the draft. So we'll see. But yeah, I think Green Bay is
still not sure if they're going to ever contend for a Super Bowl under the in the near future, because I think there are teams that are better. But
I think their ceiling is lower than a team like the Lions, right? I think the Lions have a higher ceiling, but they have a lower floor too.
Right.
I think the very solid middle kind of chunk is where the Vikings are. So we'll see. All right, so that's it. We'll take your calls. Who's your all-time least favorite Lions? I see Ernie Sims rolling by. Matt wants to come visit you. He's going to be driving through North Dakota. So when you see Northwood Guitar on your Twitter case, follow him so he can DM you. Also, yeah, and you're drinking Lagunitas, right? Was I right when I saw that? Okay, they were wondering that in the chat as well, and I guessed it.
Nicely done.
Thank you. All right, so you can give us a call, 248-782-8384. 248-782-8384, or call us at Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, and we'll talk about your least favorite Lions ever. In the meantime, I do have to talk about a great partner, and who's getting better, by the way. Our friends.
Hey, thanks.
No, our friends at Diamond CBD. They've actually amped up, and they're going to give us some of their CBD cream, the LT Lawrence Taylor Pain Master Cream. We're going to give it. This is like a $200 jar of CBD cream, right? And they're going to give us a jar for every post-game show to give away this year. Freaking crazy, awesome. Right? What a heck of a value. They're actually really fun to work with, cool dudes. I picked up some more stuff, right? Because the one thing I always talk about is if we're not going to use something or try something or actively use it or don't believe in it, we're not going to talk about it on the show. My research continues. We got these sour watermelon yum yum gummies that are absolutely delectable. It's hard to stay like with a regular dose because you just want a kind of handful. Right? They're great. I got this. They sent me this one actually. And I'll probably give it away here in the next couple bits. But for those who do the vape, it's got the vape juice, CBD. It's a little bit of a pain relief or insomnia fix that way. Got gummy bears. Then again, this pain. Now, this cream, I'm going to tell you, I was never big on this. I didn't believe in it. because I just didn't see how is rubbing it on your skin going to do anything, right? It's you just it's just a different method of ingestion. It does work. My wife said tendonitis in her thumbs and been to the doctor a couple times, and it's always a massive hassle, and it's like it's going to take like 8 visits or 6 visits or something till they figure out. They've tried giving her pills, they've tried, and nothing's really worked, and it's just such a hassle. It's not worth it to fix. I said, why don't you try this? Right, I'm going to get it. You're like
getting arthritis. I think I want to try it. It's hard. I work in a restaurant. It's hard to hold tongs all the time.
Yeah. Okay, let me get you some. So I said, look, you're going to be a tough customer because they've given you actual like over the counter, like not over the counter, like prescriptions to fix this stuff. So why don't you try this out? And she did it, and she's absolutely found relief with this stuff. So I've used it on my knee since. It's like half gone now because we've gone crazy on every little ache and pain. It's probably or whatever. Now we're like, hey, just make it all go. I would have just moisturize everything. It smells like a nice little menthol, not like Ben Gay menthol, but like a pleasant smell. Good stuff. CBD.DetroitLionsPodcast.com. If you want to look at any of the relief, any of the products that they have, I do definitely find relief. My mother-in-law is why I started on this, because she has severe back issues, spinal stenosis, and she needed something to relieve the pain. And as somebody who grew up in the reefer madness generation, she's willing to try even CBD. At that time, I was like, okay, tell you what, let me make sure it's not just a big old jank and you're gonna get ripped off. And now she, my wife, and I are all firm believers. So if you go to cbd.detroitlionspodcast.com, you'll support our sponsor, who is supporting us and supporting you guys through these giveaways that we're putting together, and get all your needs that you want. So they're great company with great products. There's some of the stuff that's a little hokey on the market. I have personally, with my own dollars, verified that Diamond CBD at cbd.detroitlionspodcast.com are the guys to go with. So there you go. All right. Let's see. What else do we have? Eric Ebron Camp Math. TV rights. I want to talk about that. Because I'm
go for it.
I've given up too much information on this. I got to figure out how I'm going to tell this story without outing anybody to any kind of issues. So I know somebody at college who is, I'm going to try to work out that they get the stream pass on the Sunday ticket so that I can get the Lions games, because they've closed the loopholes that I had. I had a VPN with somebody in Detroit where I could pop up and it looked like I was in Detroit, and then I could open up my YouTube TV and watch the local Lions games. Then YouTube TV closed that, so I got PlayStation View, which then let me do that, and that was awesome. And then PlayStation View went out of business, so that went away, so I didn't have that streaming platform. I've tried some IPTV providers. The problem is they're not reliable. They just go off, they just shut off all of a sudden, and then you're done for a month and a half. And I just can't not watch a Lions game and still do a post-game show, right? There's a real gap there in
right.
being able to do what we want to do. So I need an absolute bulletproof a way to see these games. And we were talking about it in the Slack, and it just got me thinking, right? And like I said, I'm going to try to do that. If anybody has a way that they can, rather than the streams and stuff, because those are such a mess to try to get to work on game day. They work and then they don't, and you miss stuff and all that. If anyone has a way that they can help me out with getting these Lions games down in Tampa, I would really, really appreciate it. It's got to be some kind of streaming thing. I think I can make my VPN work and be in Detroit, but it'd be better if I didn't have to. If someone had a Sunday ticket subscription I could use or something like that, their streaming capabilities on something that they want to share, I would really, really appreciate it. I'm kind of stretched thin on making this work right now. So anyway, okay, got all that going on. The TV rights is a big thing, right? We talked about the cardboard fans in the stands that I'm dying to go see, and I'm going to go look at that after the show here. But the idea that, there's nobody in the stands, it makes me worry that they're going to make it more expensive and harder to see these games. You know what I mean? Because they can say, look, there's, we've got a lock on the market.
Demand is increasingly high at the moment.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and the NFL can say, well, we're just trying to make up for lost ticket revenue, right? You don't want the salary cap to go down and your favorite players to get cut.
I mean, that's how you build piracy, though. I mean,
Exactly.
We've seen that happen time and time and time again to so many different industries. I mean, that's how the music industry ended up, collapsing in on itself in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, look at me, right? I'm looking for any way I can to see this, and I want to be absolutely legal, but they're just making it impossible. I did the DirecTV and the Sunday ticket, but guess what? I'm in Florida and it rains. I barely got to see, before Irma came through, I barely got to see the Lions game through I'm just trying to relax before the terror starts, right? Between the rain fade on the satellite. And why am I going to spend $375 million on this to have, first off, stupid DirecTV, and then the ticket on top of it on games they're going to rain fade on me, and I can't even watch them anyway. That's a bullshit deal, right? I mean, that's just a ripoff. So now they force you into a position where you got to try to do something else, and you got to find a different way to get at the content that you want and you need, and you're willing to pay for it. I'm willing to pay for it, but not $2,000 a year, right? That's stupid.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, that's that. What do you think? I see guys talking about the UK Game Pass, getting a VPN in Europe and that kind of stuff, and that's something too. I've thought about it. For me, it doesn't feel like I'm going to be able to guarantee every week is going to work. And that's with the post-game show. That's what I absolutely need, right? I need a 100% solution 100% of the time, which is generally got to be some kind of version of a legal solution, right?
Well, I'm hoping that I have most Sundays off this year. I'm finally at a place with my job where it'll be my third year there, and I can start asking for things like that.
Oh, nice.
And there's a bar within walking distance, a sports bar within walking distance of my new place. I just moving in with my girlfriend. So that's probably my answer to the solution.
No, you know what, Case? I will find a way.
Problem.
I will find a way to get you from me to you. Once I get it, I can get it to wherever.
Well,
so that you don't have to pay those exorbitant bar. You don't have to pay those exorbitant bar prices. Plus, you got to get home.
It's pretty divey. It's not expensive there. So
you got to get home from the bar to do the show, though. So anyway, all right, or maybe we'll do a Fargo Brewing remote.
That'd be cool.
That would be fun. Would they still do it? Do they still have a place where we could set up?
Yeah,
that would be interesting. I'll tell you. Okay, so that's an interesting concept. Let me throw another concept out there because we kicked this around in the Slack a little bit. What if we did a Super Bowl party? Since the Super Bowl is in Tampa next year, what if we just did a Super Bowl party since we couldn't do the training camp party? How many people? I know we have a bunch of people in Tampa. How many people would be willing to hang out in Tampa in February? I know it's such a drag compared to Detroit. And hang out during Super Bowl week. Maybe you can go to the Super Bowl. That's great. If not, we'll just have a big party. We'll corner a bar and just get a bunch of people together and have some fun. If you're interested in that, let me know. I think we could probably put a couple of events together, a couple things together in line with the Super Bowl. Some of our Rolodex friends, make some things work where we can get some access, maybe some tickets or stuff to give away. If you guys are interested. So hit us up in the comments or, in the subreddit. That's a great way to let us know if you'd be interested in doing a party like that. And if we get enough interest from folks and people kind of light up about it, we'll
I just got your request, Matt.
There you go.
Or your added. I just got that you added me on Twitter anyway.
There you go. All right, let's TV rights. Okay, let's get into. God, I gotta talk about this fantasy football. Fantasy football case. Case is playing against you guys this year, so cinch up your. What is that called? Your coxswain? No, your.
Codpiece?
Codpiece, thank you. Coxswain.
I have one within like 2 arms length of me right now from my Robin Hood costume.
I don't want to know. Coxswain is like a naval term, right? Cinch up your coxswain until he screams. Anyway, cinch up your codpiece. Fantasy football is in the menu. You can play against Case. You can play against We got some good stuff going on. You can join. Go to fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com and get in. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. You can win big money. We've got the Pro Pick'em, which is the big pool of money. We also got the fantasy football leagues, and we've got, I think it's like 33 to 40% of everyone who plays is gonna win a prize this year. So down to a t-shirt. So there's some good stuff there, a lot of fun. Join us, fantasy.detroitlionspodcast.com, and I guarantee there'll be a season, because if there's not, I guarantee you will get a refund of your money. Okay. But like I said, it's our biggest fundraiser. It's one of the things that helps pay for the servers and everything else that we use to do all this stuff with. So thank you, everybody who joins the fantasy football. Reserve your seat now. Okay. I want to talk about
it. I was going to grab it. But...
You're going to grab the cod piece. So I want to talk about Chris Burke found something interesting. Sharp Football. They had a 2020 football preview, and I'm gonna read this, okay? Because he tweeted it out, and again, Shout out to Chris Burke at The Athletic. Love their stuff. You can, if you look, you can always find a discount, but if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, you need to go get it. They have really, really great quality stuff. Anyway, okay, so he points this out. Part of it had to do with their play selection on first down, and this is the preview of the Lions, and it's kind of a review portion of that. It wasn't in just these 3 games either. Weeks 1 through 9, despite Matthew Stafford leading the NFL with 9.5 yards per attempt in the first half, the Lions came out of the locker room and ran the ball on 60% of the first down play calls. This is a rate well above what the Lions ran in first downs in the first half. These runs gained a terrible 2.7 yards per carry and produced a 25% success rate. What in the world were we thinking? And why did we not adjust? Why did we come out and run low percentage plays when we had a quarterback who could sling that ball for miles and do it successfully? Why? Case, can you explain?
Well, I have a couple theories. It's possible that they wanted to instill that type of thing, knowing full well that that was going to be the emphasis of their offseason in terms of the moves they were going to make, turning the offensive line further and further into a run blocking offensive line, and spending high draft capital on a running back, to continue to try to take pressure off of Matthew Stafford. And by doing it that way, for the year, the guys who are still around on the offensive line, and running backs are more familiar with that system. To cap it all off, Stafford's injury, I feel like at that point they want to double down on trying to emphasize that because they want to keep him healthy. And they do want to make him throw the ball less. I mean, in a perfect world.
But the thing is you're seeing it's not working. Right?
Well, it wasn't working last year with the personnel they had.
Right. So
but you improve the personnel.
Is weeks 1 through 9 the same thing happened with no adjustment?
Right.
This is the kind of thing you expect them to see and say, no. This is we're going to change this because it's obviously not working.
And I'm not saying there isn't cause for concern. I'm just saying that I have a theory that perhaps maybe that was their mindset, and they knew full well that this, especially after Stafford went down, but even before Stafford went down, they knew that this season wasn't likely to be their super successful season. Mm-hmm. And Kerryon Johnson, who I think they were hoping, would have a better health issue, he went down. So then you're working with, your backup running backs, but you still want to. I don't know. There's a philosophy at play, and I don't know if it's the right philosophy, but it's a philosophy. I think that was what they're trying to do. Also, while I agree that it didn't work super well, and while it did lead to those situations where the Lions, were stagnant in the second half, if they can improve through, practice and repetition, which is essentially, if you want to talk about the whole last half of last season as basically practice
for the lower end
for the players
roster,
who are still going to be around, and for the coaches who are still going to be around. If you can make that work, then that system is, a viable, or at least a well known, strategy to, run the ball down their throats in the second half when you have a lead. Obviously, that didn't work for us. And I also don't know that it's my favorite philosophy, because I think keeping your foot on the gas is I prefer that. But I also don't know, I don't know if this is Darrell Bevell's MO from going way back, because I also know that Russell Wilson had a tendency late in games to have to take over and do things. Right. And I don't know.
We're going to establish the run whether we win or lose is a bad idea. Right.
We've seen a lot of different things out of Darrell Bevell, I think, over his career. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that just because we saw it this year and just because we saw it the whole year doesn't necessarily mean that's what we'll see going forward.
Sure. All right. A couple things. Terry Fair as the least favorite Lions player. That's a great one. I forgot all about Terry Fair.
I don't know
if that's a repressed memory or what. Let's talk about the running back position really quick, because we talked about Kerryon and his injury, and he's got a significant injury history. I don't like the concept of somebody being injury prone, right? Unless they're mal-sized for their position. right?
Mm-hmm.
They miss leg days and they're on the line. Bad recipe for injury, right? Just that kind of stuff. I don't want to see guys that aren't built for the position. Kerryon Johnson is the right size, right build for the position that he plays and how he plays it. So the idea of him being injury prone, I don't know that I necessarily buy that piece. And you can disagree with me. But the question we got, and this came out of the chat, is he the go-to guy is he the number one running back? Is he the workhorse? Or do you think it's Swift coming in and he's gonna take control of that ball out of the backfield to start the season?
Well, I think having no preseason, it's absolutely Kerryon.
Yeah.
And I think that this coaching staff has proven that they're willing to stick with the conservative, start the veteran over the rookie until the rookie comes along and proves himself. So,
yeah, absolutely. I think the rookie is going to prove himself. I think it's going to be a true running back by committee. I do too, and I'd be surprised
if Kerryon doesn't finish the year in at least a 50-50 split, if not leaning towards Swift. I think Kerryon would have to seriously get back to, the impact that he had as a rookie to maintain that role, I think.
Yeah. I think what we're going to see is game one is going to be the whole preseason wrapped up in a single game. That's really what it is. It's going to be all the bubble guys. You're going to see guys in the bottom of the roster playing at certain points in that first game this year.
Speaking of the bottom of the roster.
Hold on, let me finish.
yeah. Sorry, but there's a little piece of news we need to.
Okay, yeah. I think we're going to see a lot of the guys at the bottom of the roster see game time and their only chance to win themselves a role or get bounced for somebody else to try them on for size. Mm-hmm. With some of the new rules of practice squad and other things, I think it gives a lot of flexibility.
Now.
Yep, a lot of flexibility for teams. I think you're going to see Swift get hit, either, I think Kerryon Johnson is the plan right now with the idea that Swift can come in and take that. I think running back by committee, we're going to see a real committee, and I think we're going to see multiplicity on multiple running backs on the field at the same time, right, to help mix things up. And in different positions, slots, and so on. I think these things are gonna add to what we have. But in game one, I think Kerryon is going to be the workhorse, and you're going to see them feeling out these other guys to determine what they can bring in a game situation. So what we see in game one, I would not say is going to be indicative of what the rest of the Lions season looks like as far as players and plays and attacks and so on.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
All right. Wow, we're covering the chat. We're covering what we got. What else do we have? We got Fanatics. Don't forget, you want all your Lions gear. If you want a sexy visor like I got here, or any of the other Lions, you want your Michigan State, you want your Red Wings, you want your can't wait to not wait watch baseball stuff. It's all available. College stuff is available at fanatics.detroitlionspodcast.com. Check it out. Get all your good stuff there. And also, anytime you want to shop at Amazon, pick up all that great stuff, go to amazon.detroitlionspodcast.com. It'll take you straight to the site. Just throws a little cookie to let them know that we sent you, and they give us a kickback every time you do that. Whew. That's all the bullet points. Case, did you have anything else you want to talk about? Any other topics?
No, I think I'm good.
Hey, Don from France. Nice to see you, buddy. I'm going to do a quick scan on the questions. If anyone wants to drop one really quick in the chat, we'll get that together. Matt confesses he's Peyton Manning, by the way.
Sure.
Stud pass rusher. Yeah,
when he shows up here.
Sean, I'll just say Sean now, but I guess it's in the chat. So Sean Lake, he says the only star I want at this point is a stud pass rusher of some sort, someone who can affect the offense at every play, even if it's double teams. I think we're going to get a little bit of that out of Flowers, but I think we need one more. I think you're right. A guy to really, really kind of pound that in there and get that done. So, all right. I think that covers it, my friends. I think we've got a show. Thank you all for joining us. Remember, show needs your involvement. Get on over to the subreddit. Give us your feedback. Let us know what you think of the show, how we can do better, how you can be involved, because it is your show. Remember, it's a community show, and the community needs to help us make it better. Don't forget about us on Patreon, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast, patreon.com/Detroit Lions Podcast. Get in there. As little as $1 a month will get you some access to the chat, the most intelligent Lions chat on the internet, plus the beer chat, the stocks chat. We got all kinds of different rooms of great conversations going on. It's a really, really great group of people. That little barrier of money makes the trolls go away. It's great. It just shows you how small people really are. So yeah, join it and you'll get access to that. It's a great time. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/ The Detroit Lions Podcast, Facebook.com/The Detroit Lions Podcast. Also, I don't know if you guys noticed during the countdown, our $20 and above sponsors get that special screen space where we give them a big thank you. You can get your name there too, so don't forget. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at DET Lions Podcast. DET Lions Podcast is the very best place to see Case
making steaks for dinner.
Oh, nice. Tube steak. It gets called via Skype, Detroit Lions Podcast, all one word, Detroit Lions Podcast, or call us on the Lions line at 929-33-LIONS. It's 929-335-4667. Be sure to go to DetroitLionsPodcast.com. Subscribe to the podcast so we can show up in your pants or your ears automatically. Thank you for tuning in. We're going to see you next time on the Detroit Lions Podcast. Remember, no pants, no toasters, no hot tubs, and no problems, baby, because we're your Detroit Lions and Reddit connection.